Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and it's nice to be back online after a long time. Yes, it's good to be back, and today I'm just going to be catching up on some of the stuff that I've missed. I've missed quite a number of stuff. Last week I didn't stream at all. Last week, yeah, I was just taking the time out to rest. It's been like a busy first 4 months of the year, and the fourth month is also out of the way, almost out of the way as well. So, but I mean, it's good to be here, and today I'm just going to be, playing around JavaScript and just catch up on like some of the latest stuff in the JavaScript ecosystem, right? We have React 19. React 19 is like the most interesting one. Yeah, sorry about that. React 19 is dropping, or they just dropped React version 19, the beta version. Yeah, Stanley, as usual, you're always like the first person to drop a comment. Um, so there's React 19 going into the beta, right? And I mean, I'm going to open up the blog post so we kind of like see what's going on there. And we also have Node.js releasing their own version 22, right? It has some interesting stuff as well. Then Microsoft TypeScript 5.5 also is, I think, entering beta as well. And I mean, lots of cool stuff going on around the whole internet, right there, around the JavaScript ecosystem. If you're like a follower of JavaScript, you understand that there are cool stuff going on. And I think there is the web component story of WebAwesome. I don't know if you guys know anything about WebAwesome. The shoelace team is joining. I think they are joining Font Awesome to form a company called WebAwesome, and I think they raised around close to 1 million US dollars like recently, right? So their goal is to bring more components to Shoelace, right? I mean, it's just cool stuff coming into like the web space. So they are investing a lot of energy into like the whole web component stuff, right there. Abdul Qadri, good to see you as well. And what also, I think we also have Dino and Born. Also, there is JSR, right? JSR is out there, just another interesting rival to Yarn, npm and PNPM and npm. So we just have cool stuff in the JavaScript ecosystem. Just to catch you guys up on all the cool stuff that we have in the JavaScript ecosystem right there. And yeah, so let's just get. I mean, the most exciting one is definitely React 19. React 19 entering beta is like the cool one, very cool. We have RSC, React server-side components. So if you want to catch up on React server-side components, I think Josh Comu should have a RSC. I think you should have a blog on React server-side component. Yeah. So there's this blog post from Josh Comu just for you to understand. I mean, there is no code too much. It's just for you to understand the concept of React server-side components. So if you want to really have an idea of what heresy is, right? You can just breeze down this article, right, to understand what the cool stuff is being released there. And what else do we have there? So I'm going to drop this in the comment for anybody who wants to just catch up on what you have right there. Uh, we have that coming from. We also have. We also have. We have. So in the React 19, right? Most of the major stuff that we have is actions. Actions is part of your React server-side components, right? right? It allows you to run some server-side action inside a front end, inside a client-side component. So that's what actions are. Actions are just a JavaScript server-side operation that you can run inside a client-side component, basically. So if you have been following the Next.js stream that I've been doing, right, I did a little bit of stuff with actions, right, with Next.js right there. And also we have the transition, right, the use transition hook, which is not very much popular, right. It also allows you to do some interesting stuff right there. I've not used the start transition like that per se, 'cause I don't know so much about the start transition, but I'm going to be learning about what it does. And we also have the use optimistic, right. It's another hook that we have that is being released there. Then we have like the use action state, and we have the use form state. I don't know whether they renamed the form state to use action state. Can But there is a new hook called the use action state that is dropping as well, which is lit there. And then React DOM has a component called form. Now React DOM has something for you, a form, inbuilt form from React right there. So then we also have another hook from React DOM, which is what use form status. And we also have what do we have there? We have the use API itself now. So the use allow us to suspend, right? Just to suspend a particular promise. So instead of using something like your promise.all, right, we are able to use we are able to just use what's it called? We're able to just use right there to await a particular thing. So what this does is that the use accept this particular promise, and this component will not be rendered right until this has resolved. So instead of using like you're using like a conditional check to load, right? And the suspense is going to understand what's going on. So the suspense is so while you're waiting for the use to complete, right? The suspense is going to render the fallback right there. So that's another very interesting stuff right there that is coming to React. And I think we also have, what else do we have there? So context as well. You don't need to use something called context.provider anymore. You can just wrap your context with a use and go ahead to use it directly. And obviously we have the server-side components, right? The server component, we have server actions. Then we have some improvements that is coming to 19, which is you can use your ref as a prop, right? So we don't need to do this before. We usually need something we call forward ref to do something like this. We need something called forward ref before, but I guess this is a new improvement that is coming now. So you don't need to use anything called forward ref anymore. So you can now use your ref as a prop, right? Rather than using something called the forward ref. And we have some improvements, right? Some better error during hydration, right? How many of us know the meaning of hydration? Hydration. Hydration is another cool word right there. So I mean it's just like when a server renders your React, it has like the string version of your HTML, and it sends that to your client, and the client renders the HTML, and then your React takes over from there. So that process of turning it into a string and sending it to the client side is what you refer to as what hydration. And we also have context. You don't have to use context before. If you want to do this, it has to be context.provider, right? You pass it a value, so it is no longer context.provider anymore. You can just use context directly and you pass it a value, right? And you can go ahead and use your context from there. And also you can pass, if you are passing to a ref a arrow function, right? You can also pass a cleanup directly to that ref, which is something we don't have before, right? Also coming to React as well. And What else do we have there? The use deferred value. I don't know what this does because I've not used this before. But on render, the value is empty, right? When the render happens, when the render is scheduled with the deferred value. That's interesting. I mean, so you can only set the initial value. I mean, I don't know so much about this, but this looks like something go. This hook look like something that is interesting. The use deferred value. So it means that the value is only going to be used when your component re-renders, and that's cool. And this is another interesting thing that I'm so happy for. Right, you now have inbuilt support for document updating your HTML document metadata, so we don't have to use React element async. How many of us know React element async? React element async allows us to change the title, change the description, and change a couple of other information like that. So we don't have to do that again inside any component where you are. You can just change your title and the title is going to change. You can just pass your meta, right? You can pass a change the five icon here inside any component and it's going to work for you. And this is dope because again, this is going to save you and not bringing in an external package, right? So this is like a very cool thing. I mean, I think Svelte has something like this inbuilt, and I think Svelte has something like this inbuilt. I think Svelte supports stuff like this inbuilt, so it's good to see React, going in this direction as well. And what else? Yes, you can also pass a style sheet inside a component, because I think we've been looking, for myself and my teammate have been looking for something like this, because we were looking for a way to only, like, you want to only send some CSS to React when your component has rendered, right? But this is like, now they are giving us a link tag inside of any component. So it means that you now have the ability to, so, and this is not going to be, this link tag here is not going to be a render blocking link tag. It's not going to stop your rendering. It's not going to block your rendering. Unlike if you have like a import CSS at the top of your component. So if you have a import CSS at the top of your component, it goes into the head and it sometimes can block your rendering from happening. But with this now, you have a link tag inside of your component. It's not going to block the rendering. It's not going to slow down the rendering of your UI. And I mean, look at here, you can set the precedence as well, whether it is default or whether it is high. I think if it's going to be high, then it might be blocking the rendering process, right? But this is going to also improve the performance of our React like in a very good way, because you can now delay some of the CSS that you're loading, even though I know it does not have any scoping, right? And it doesn't have any scoping. And you can see here, it will be inserted before this is done here. So that's some so if you send another component here, won't lead to a duplicate style sheet in the link. So another thing is, if you have two components importing the same style sheet, the React is going to be smart enough not to duplicate the style sheet. So that's another cool stuff there. Then it also has support for async script as well. So most especially this, I think for the async script comes for when you have like external applications like all these chat, intercom, talk to, all these other chat icon button that you have in your applications. I don't know if you have gone to any product and you see this chat application, intercom, all these guys there. So instead of you loading them directly, because when you load them instantly into your index dot maybe JS or your main.jsx, they sort of slow down your application and they become render blocking as well. So, but by the time you can import a script inside of your component now, right, you don't have to be doing document.create element and passing the script inside of your use effect, right? You don't have to stress and do all this anymore, because React is giving us, co-provision to bring in a script directly. Though, even though I know that this can also be dangerous, but at least it's cool to see React. And I think also they are giving us the ability to prefetch, right? You have the prefetch DNS or the pre-connect, the preload, or the pre-init, right? So all these are document ints, right, that we have in HTML attributes. So it is good to see that they are also giving us the ability to send all these things as well from React component in itself. So, and this, right, you can see that this is going to turn to something beautiful like this. And to be honest with you, this is like one of the best times to be a React engineer, right? Just to be able to like do all those things inside of your React is beautiful. Like it's just beautiful. So um we also have, what do we have there? We have better error reporting, and we also have, yeah, I think there's another cool stuff here. React is also supporting like web component easily. They have like better support for web component, which is more interesting. So that's like all the major stuff on React 19. I just can't wait to like get my hands dirty and use all of these interesting APIs that React is. I mean, it's not just about talking about them, it's about using them and improving our experience, improving the building of application, right, for engineers. And I think that by the time the full thing drops, we would have React Forget, which is their compiler, right? So we don't have to use React, we don't have to use memo or use callback anymore, and all those all those other APIs right there. So what else do we have? You can take a look at Node.js, right? Node.js 22. I think for Node.js 22, the thing I am most excited about for Node.js 22 is that I don't have to use npm run something anymore, right? Because there is going to be a node hyphen run. I don't know if you can see this. This is like so cool, and it's just crazy. Like it's just like crazy because this is 6 times, I think they said it's 6 times faster than npm run something. And I don't know, because if npm is 6 times slower, and if I do node hyphen run, and you can say run dev, right? Because in the end, when you run npm run something, it is eventually still using node behind the scene. So why not node giving us that API that allow us to access run something? And I'm telling you, you can't just imagine. Like, this is beautiful, because this is going to save us, like, imagine like 6 seconds or 6 times how many seconds that this is going to be saving you right there. And I think the ability to now require ESM packages. So at some point, you could only do import for ESM, right? It's not going to work if you require them. But now you can now use a require for ESM models, right? For those who don't know what ESM models is, right? ESM models are just like, they are packages, or yeah, npm packages, or whatever kind of packages that you are importing, and they only work with, they have something inside of their packet or JSON that you have, what that they call type model, right? Those are ESM packages, and you can't use require with them. And that has been a compatibility problem with Node.js and ESM, right, for a long period of time. And it's good now that we can see that Node has a way to fix that, so you can require ESM packages right straight up from our Node. And we also have like WebSocket, browser compatible implementation of WebSocket inside of Node.js, right? We also have improvements coming to Node, the FS, and the FS module inside of Node, which is the file system, which allows us to do glob and the glob async APIs for proper pattern matching. This has been inside Born. And I think the reason why they are doing this is because this has been inside Born. There is Born.glob. So Born.glob, you just pass maybe asterisk.ts, and it's going to search for all the TypeScript file in that particular directory easily. So I feel like because Born has implemented it, they don't have a choice than to also implement it here. So you can see the way the competition from Dino, the competition from Born, and is helping Node.js to become better and better. And then we have performance improvement for abort signal. If you don't know abort signal is a way to abort like fetch operation, to abort maybe like server operations, right, using your abort signal. So, and then we have what else? I think that's basically all there. And I think it's also worth to know that Node.js 18 will have the end of life at what, April 2025. So, I mean, you can see all the cool stuff that we have in the Node, JavaScript, TypeScript ecosystem there. I'm not going to talk too much about like the TypeScript one. We have TypeScript 5.5, right? Also with some interesting stuff right there. Um, type predicates. We have what else do we have? We have type predicates. We have control flow narrowing for constant index access. We also have I think the ability to import a particular type into your what do we call it now? To import type into your import type for JSDoc, right? And we also have regular expression syntax checking, right? With TypeScript, then these isolated declarations. I've been hearing so much amazing stuff about isolated declarations. I don't know too much about it, but it feels like it's something cool as well. And this was led by Rob Palmer. If you have not heard about Rob Palmer is the guy behind the TC39 team. I think he's the chair of the TC39 team as of now. So again and again, it is cool stuff, right? Um from Abdurrahman. Thank you. So it's cool stuff coming from TypeScript as well. You have um I think you have this as well. Then we have editor watch mode reliability improvements. We have better handling of deletes followed by immediate writes. These are internal stuff. Then I think the drop in the file size as well is another cool stuff, right? The drop in the size. Then I think node reuse emit. And there was something I wanted to also talk about. I can't remember now, but there's something in my head that I also wanted to talk about. Right, I can't remember. Maybe as I continue, maybe talking, I would remember. Right, some of the cool stuff. But it's just about like I think it's another recent. Okay, I think I remember there was the TC39 dev.to. Yeah, I think they had their this recent meeting. Yeah, so the last TC39 meeting happened in I think early April. So these are the updates that I think I've talked about this. I think so, which is the error, the signals, the use, right, the math.sum precise, the promise.try, right, which is another very interesting way to create promises. Then you have what the declaration of eval introduce variables, then the dynamic code check, then set method is in stage 4, and duplicate capture group for regular expression. So this is another cool stuff that you should also be aware of, that is also like coming into your JS. And that is all on the catching up on JavaScript and all the cool stuff right there. So I think there are some interesting stuff that is coming to CSS as well. I don't know if you have seen this Anchor tools. There's Anchor tools in CSS. Anchortools.com. I think so. Because there is the Anchor positioning API that is coming to your CSS. You can now anchor a particular element, right? So this is also what paying attention to. I think there's a particular tool there, the CSS anchor positioning coming there. Yeah, so this is this tool here, right? It will help you to just anchor something, right? You pass it can anchor something on the top. So instead of you passing something like top and left, or instead of you passing maybe bottom and right, just put something in a particular corner with your CSS right there. So you now have this anchor thing, right, that is coming to CSS, which allows us to just put a particular element at a specific place that we desire to put it easily. And yeah, I think I can't remember all the stuff in CSS for now, but if you want to really catch up on front end CSS, front end masters CSS, I think front end masters wrote a particular article. They wrote a particular article that talks about all the latest stuff. They talk about all the latest stuff that is coming to Chris Collier talked about all the latest stuff that is coming to CSS. I can't even see that post. But there is a particular post by Chris Collier that talks about all the latest stuff coming to. Can I search? They give us a way to search. Modern CSS, modern CSS, modern CSS, modern CSS. Yes, I think it should be this. Is it written by Chris Collier? Yeah, I think it's written by Chris Collier. So this is the post here. If you want to know all the stuff about all the new things that are coming to CSS, container query sizes, right? So you can now do container queries. We have what else do we have? We have container units, and we have, I think we have I think just get on to read the article, right? Just to know. Then there is the has pseudo selector. We have the view transition for better animations. And what else do we have? So you can see that animation there is a view animation. We have scroll driven animation with the scroll APIs. Then we have, yeah, anchor positioning. I talked about these. We have scoping, right? I think we have color mix as well. I think there should be color mix. We have cascading, which is the add layers. Then we have, yeah, we have add layers. Then we have the logical properties. Yeah, I think we have logical properties. We have P3 colors, right? This is some advanced color mixing stuff that is in here, right? Giving us especially the OK LCH and the OK lab. And there's this color function that is introduced as well. We have the color functions that is introduced as well, which allow us to mix color easily. So you can see we also have like the color mix function, which allows us to mix two colors together, right? Which is something serious that we don't have the ability to do with your CSS right here. Then we have this particular CSS property called margin trim, right? Margin trim allows you to do a lot. We have text wrap, right? And subgrid as well is becoming much more useful. And so we also have CSS mixing. We have relative color syntax, then interrupt of 2024, then the CSS property called field sizing. And there's another new HTML element that is called select menu that is also coming. Like, this is a lot, to be honest. Is a lot. I really, I think I've not even gone through everything like this before now, but there's a lot. There's just a lot. And I know if you're overwhelmed, if you're thinking, can I know all this stuff? How do I do this and stuff like that? You don't have to bother too much, right? Yours is just to keep going. Some of these things are not, maybe you're working in all the browser already, but if you want to be that engineer, right, you need to write article about all the new things. If you want to be that engineer that will get the job, you want to be that engineer that would just like move to the next level, right? You need to start diving into all these new things, right? Position yourself ahead, right? So that opportunities can come to you, so that job opportunities, you can write technical articles, right? You can build applications that help people to understand all these things better. And that's the way, that's the trick to position yourself in a better way, right? So that before other engineers, right, start getting into all these things, you already know about it, you have built tool about it, then you become the people that go to conference to speak about all these things. You'll be able to like do a workshop about all those features that is coming. And that's the reason why I'm emphasizing, if you want to really be the best, right, among your peers, if you want to really stand out and stand tall, right, these are things that you have to note them down and critically go back and dive deep into them, know why they are not working, know why it should work, know how to use them, and start creating articles, right? Start writing things, start building tools, right, that will show your world how to use all those things. Again, the idea again is to what? Set yourself apart, right? Set yourself apart, right? Create your own niche, right? That can really fetch you or move you to the next level, right, in your career. So that being said, that was like a little bit of all the new stuff that are coming into JS. And today, right, I primarily have less than very few minutes left. I intend to talk about. I wanted to finish talking about object to primitive conversion, right? And I mean, I wanted to talk about. You can see that these are the stuff I want to cover in the next couple of days, right? On the JavaScript streaming, I want to talk about JSON methods. Talk about date and time. Talk about destructuring. Talk about object.keys, object.values, object.entries, and talk about object.group. Right? Object.group is a very new API as well. Then also talk about WeakMap, WeakSet, talk about maps and set basically, and talk about all the new APIs that we have as well under set and under maps. And talk about iterables, right? How to create your own iterables, and array methods. Then explore all the new methods that we have under arrays, right? We have the array dot to sort, to splice, array dot width, array dot height. Those are new array methods that are not popular yet, that engineers are not really using. So also talk about that, and then talk about strings, talk about numbers, and eventually talks about like some methods of primitives. Yeah. So those are the stuffs I intend to talk about in the next couple of days. And trust me, JavaScript is on fire, right? As usual, right? It's shaping the world, is moving fast, and you can always best bet on it. You can always trust JavaScript right there too. Yeah, so that's all like I intend to talk about right there. So I'm just going to dive a little bit back to object to primitive conversion. In the past couple of days, we considered like all this stuff about objects, and the one I did not really like to rush was the object to primitive conversion. That is, if we have an object, how does the browser maybe console.log the object, right? That is some interesting conversation, right? And can you give me a sec? Yeah, can you give me a sec, please? Just let me attend to something. Yeah, yeah, I'm back. So if we do something like I hope I'm audible, right? I hope I'm audible. If we do something like console.log and you pass it, maybe you pass it, let's say 1 comma, or let's just do a this and you do b this. So that conversion, right, that happens here, because the reason why you can see this object was converted, like was just converted to a format that you can see here, right? That you can see right there, and that is with the help of something inside of the object, which is what your object dot to string, right? Which is a function there that allows you to. So that is the method, the stuff I intend to maybe talk about a little bit. And another thing that is also important there is if you do a lot, let's say we do a lot. If you do a lot, let's do a lot of the same thing that we just logged now. If we do a lot, if you do a lot of something like this, how do I pronounce your name? shortly. Today I'm just talking about this object to primitives, right? Conversion, right? Yeah. And eventually I will talk about JSON methods in JavaScript. Talk about JSON method in JavaScript. All right. So you're telling me that the meaning of your name is Joy, right? Is that what you say? All right, interesting. So if you see what I have here, right? This console.log, this alert that we have here is showing object to object. So it means that alert is not able to accept this same object that we have here to show the user what it means, right? And that is something that is because alert is not the way the alert is, configured, right? It's not able to send out that object value, and so when it tries to log it, that's why you see this object right there. And also, if you've seen any React application, and if you go to like the HTML, sometimes you will see some attributes. You will see some attributes showing undefined, right? Or you're seeing object around, around those attributes and HTML element, and it's because that something is trying to do a particular thing and it's not converted properly. So that is the concept of object to primitive conversion right there. So it has some rules, right? It has some rules, and we're just going to explore the rules, just explore the rules a little bit. And when we explore the rules, you sort of like understand why. So another thing is, these are like the two major purpose of doing it. It's not, you don't do this in your normal day-to-day programming though, but it's just for you to understand what goes on behind the scene, just the internal stuff, internal detail that goes on behind the scene there. So it allows us to understand what goes on in the case of coding mistake. Anytime you see object, right? If you're building a particular application and you're seeing the log object, then you know that a particular object is trying to be converted to string and it's not working, right? That's what is going on behind the scene. Then also there are exceptions where such operations are possible and what look good. For example, subtracting and comparing date object, right? Right. Those are another interesting place. So what is, for those who are just joining for the first time, right? I hope you know, right? You have an idea of what objects are or what primitives are. So if you don't know what objects are or what primitives are, right, you can check some of the previous episode of the streams where I talked about objects in full detail, and where I also talked about primitives, right? The data types, your numbers, your strings, your what are that one? Boolean, right? And yeah, so like Shodlik said, right, arrays and functions are also object behind the scene right there. So those are what also investing in to understand. So now if you want to convert object to primitive, so it means that you're either converting an object to something like maybe a straightforward number, or you're converting an object to a string, or you're just going from a particular object type to a primitive, right? There is something we call the rules, right? And it's basically built around something we call ints, right? So the way they work is that there is no conversion to Boolean. All objects are true. So that is one rule there, right? And we can do numeric, right? Numeric happens when you try to subtract object or apply mathematical function, for instance, right? Date object, which is going to be covered later. You can subtract one date from another date, right? Yeah. Yes, you're right. So I think like what you just did here, right there, which is what converting string. You're trying to convert a particular object into what string, and you're going to just get the array of object. And so people are confused and say, "Oh, what is this?" Right? So how do we handle situations like that? Right there. And also you can see the situation of alerting an object, right? You see that when you try to alert an object, it also gives you the array of object, object, object. right there. So how do we fix that? So the way to fix that is that we can implement something called a hint, right, with the string and numeric conversion by ourselves using some special object. So how does the int work? The int work in this, in this way where, so there is the int where definitely you can use, you're touching on the JSON.parse, which I'm still going to cover that later, right there. So how does JavaScript decide which conversion to apply? Because let's say how does JavaScript understand that, okay, this object, I'm supposed to convert it to a primitive, just a primitive, a single primitive. How do I convert it into a single primitive? So it has a system called ints, right? Which one int can be a string int. That is, the int is inting that I want to convert this object to what? This object to a string. Okay, right there. So if you try to what? To convert the object to, and we also have so we also have the numbers int, right? From here, you're trying to convert the object to numbers right there. So explicit conversion, right? You are passing the number constructor to the object, it returns a particular number, or you pass this to the object right there. Or if you're dealing with dates, right, you can, subtract date from each other and it's going to return something there. Or you can do comparison with numeric right there. So most built-in mathematical functions also include such conversions. And we also have the default int, right? Occurs in rare cases where the operator is not sure what exact type, whether you're trying to, what type you're trying to convert. So in a way, to decide, it use something called like the default int. In this situation, when you do two object plus two object, then it has to decide, right, which approach to use, right? And it's always called what the default int. Now, what you said in the comment there, right? If you use a JSON.stringify, a JSON.stringify just gives us like, how do I do this now? Let's just see something work behind the scene. So if we go to our console and you go here, we can do, if you do a JSON.stringify, so this will only convert like the whole object into one string. But we're saying that there's a way to convert object into meaningful string, not just like stringifying the whole thing, but there's a way to just convert. So because to just convert that exact object into a single primitive value. So if it's object of maybe the object of a:1, you want to convert maybe the one there to a string, you want to take it further, not just stringify the whole thing, but use some advanced level of provisions that JavaScript makes available for us to do that right there. And so to do that, you're going to be tapping into a inbuilt symbol that is inside of objects, right? A inbuilt symbol that is inside of our object, which is the object dot symbol dot to primitives. I think so. We should have, see here. Is it here? It's not here. There should be a symbol. There should be a symbol called object dot to primitive, right? It allows us to tap into some internal structure of our object, right? And then when you have your object, you get the symbol dot to primitive property, and you can pass it a particular int, right? And it can go ahead to, so the int can either be something like maybe a string, right? And internally it's going to try to use the object dot to string, or it uses the object dot to value, right? Or if it is number or default, right, it's going to use the object dot value or object dot to string right there. So let's just see examples of these. So you're going to just pass a function to the object. So let's try this now. Let's try this. let's just copy this as our starting point, and we can use VS Code, and we can use our VS Code for this. So I'm using Quokka to run our code, if you know Quokka. So here we have this method, right, baked in. And so this method is what? A square bracket. You know, the reason why we're using square bracket here is because you want JavaScript to process this as a variable, right, which is a symbol dot to primitive, and you're passing it this particular property called int, right? And you want to do something like, I mean, we can just turn this to console.log, since alert will not work inside of our JavaScript. And so if the hint here is what? A string, so this is what we are going to see. You're going to see something like this. And if it is a number, right, you're going to, so again, this is, you are what? You are inside the object and you're hijacking, right? You're controlling the ability to what? Output this object has what? A single primitive, either a string or what? A number. And this is, this is different from just converting the whole object by stringify, but this is a way to just go into the object and hijack the process of what? Of converting that object. So here, if we do something like, if you do something like a conversion to number, you will always what? See what? 1000. Why? Because this unary plus sign tries to convert the whole user object to what? A particular primitive. And because you've specified the int that you want to use, that okay, if I can check the int that they're trying to do, right, and I notice that it's a number, a numeric conversion that is happening, then I am just going to give them what? The number thing that is inside of my object. And if they try to do maybe a console.log, just do a console.log, a console.log of string, right? String of user. And you would see that what happens here is that what? You can see that what? It gave me the string quoted of the object right there, which is something that naturally JavaScript cannot do by default, except you hijack the whole process from JavaScript and control that ability. So I feel like this is interesting for you to know, right? I've not used it. I've not used this before in any project or anything, but it's just useful for you to know that sometimes you can have a special need, and that special need is like, I need to convert this object to, to a particular single primitive, whether it is number or whether it is string. Then you can use something we call what? The symbol dot to primitive, right? Which helps you to hijack that object, right? The internal detail of the object, and specify a particular hint, right? So, and the two major hints or three major hints that we have is what? You have the string int, you have what? The number int, and you have the default int, which is also like the number hint basically right there. So based on the int that is coming, right, we're using ternary. So if the string int is what? A string, you can decide what happens here. So eventually I can also change this and say, just give us, just output maybe something like, give us this dot name, just give us this dot name, right? And you can do this. So it's, it's a cool way that inside of this now, if I take this into the browser, and I do the alert of this user, I'm not going to get the default error that we usually get before, right? Because the default error is that if you do alert, I think I've done something like that before. So if you do this alert here, you would see that what? I have this what? Object, right? But if I create a new object like this, call this, and I do the alert of that user, if I do the alert of that user, it's not going to give me that object anymore, because now I have programmed it, I jacked the whole conversion process, right, to now give me John as the string version of what? Of my what? Of my object. So that is something you call what? The object to primitive conversion, right? It's not something you use regularly in programming, but it's just for you to understand that it's possible, right there. And the reason why it is possible is because of what? This symbol, right, which is called what? Symbol dot to primitive, which allows you to hijack, right, the conversion and specify a particular hint, and based on that hint determine what is going to happen to that object. And I think, yeah, that's all I wanted to say about, that whole process there. And also, you know that we also have like the dot to string, right? The object dot to string, or the object dot value of, right? So if there is no symbol dot to primitive, right, in the object, JavaScript relies on to use what? To string or value of. So JavaScript decides to use what? If it does not see the symbol dot to primitive, it will now resort to use what? Object dot to string or object dot value of. Again, these are interesting things that are worth knowing, right? Again, they're just beautiful stuff that are worth knowing. Okay, they're just beautiful stuff that are worth they're worth knowing, they are worth, worth investing your time in, because again, it helps you to sort of like do some amazing stuff as a JS engineer. So I'm creating a variable called AB, right? And if I do AB dot to string of that thing, right, I'm not going to get anything serious, right? Because it doesn't understand this. If I do AB dot value of, right there. So you can see that value of gave me something better than to string, because value of makes more sense than what? Just giving me square bracket of object. So this is another interesting thing to use. It's either you hijack the process with your symbol dot to primitive, or you rely on using what? The to string method or the value of method that is attached to your object right there. And you can always avoid the square bracket object error that is common right there. And also, you can specify your to string inside of the object yourself, right? So this, you're not using symbol, you're just specifying your to string, and you're specifying your what. So this is just equivalent to using the symbol dot to primitive right there. So it's another very interesting stuff that you can also do. So what that is saying is that we can have let person equals to let's say name, right? Name equals to Stanley, right? Stanley. And we can now have our own to what? To string API right there. And what this does is that it's just going to return what? That. So anytime I try to what? Anytime I try to do console.log person, right, I have this. But if I try to use console.log the string of person, look at what is going to happen. If I try to do the console.log string of the person, it's now giving me Stanley, right? But if I take out this method, you're going to get your normal object. But because I now specify my to string and I'm telling it the exact stuff that I want it to do, and even if I quote this one now, right, if I quote this guy here, if I quote that this dot name there, you see that instead of giving me Stanley, it will always give me this dot name there. So you are, again, we're using this to string to hijack what? The string object to string conversion, right, to take over the whole process. And let's say we want to convert this age right there. So if you want to convert the age, then we can do what? To value, no, value of, it is called value. Is it value? Is it capital value? Now I can't remember. It should be value of. I think it should be something like this. And if we use this, it can help us to convert what? The numbers. So if we try to convert this with number right there, if we try to convert it with number, right, you would see that what? I get my 30 right there, which is now beautiful. You are now hijacking the whole process, right, away from what JavaScript controlling the conversions, right? But you are the one controlling the conversions, right? There again, I've not seen any use case for this in my days of writing. I mean, I'm not that experienced, right? But in my 5 to 6 years experience, I've not used this in any project, but I just know that it is possible, right? So anytime you have a need to use it, you know that you have this tool right in your on your tool belt that allows you to hijack the process of what object to primitive conversion, right? And the developer can control the output of what object to primitive conversion, and it is beautiful. Like I said, it's a very beautiful stuff, right? That you can always do right there. And that being said, I want to talk about JSON methods or the JSON APIs. That is something that so because part of what I plan to talk about today is what the JSON method or to JSON API. Um, I said I was not going to spend like up to 1 hour today, but look at me, because I'm trying to run for another. I think I have another meeting, so I don't know whether the person is going to be available. But I'm running into another meeting, so let's see whether the person is available. Yeah. All right. So while I'm still waiting on the person to join, I'm just going to maybe talk a little bit about JSON, right? What are JSON methods, right? I mean, I think I've talked about this before. I'm not sure if I have, and I think should talked about it a little bit in the comment, right? The JSON.toStringify method allow us to turn anything to strings, any valid JavaScript, any valid JavaScript object. It allows you to turn it into a string. And we also have the JSON.pass, right? That allows us to take any stringified, stuff. You can turn it back into the real thing. So from arrays to strings to objects, to I think even functions. I'm not sure functions, but I think we'll check. But we now have the ability to just use JSON.stringify, or you use the JSON.pass method. Again, so the stringify converts everything to string. The pass will take a stringified something and convert it back to the original version of it right there. And we also use it for doing a deep copy of objects. You can remember, I think I talked about this when you were talking about what shallow copy or deep copying stuff from an object. So this is the JSON or stringify, right? What is JSON? Obviously, the JSON is JavaScript object notation, right? And JSON helps us to convert objects to what proper JSON format. Stringify helps you to convert it into a stringified object, and this JSON.pass helps us to take what the past JSON, right? You can convert it back to what the original object. So these are words. So JSON support object, arrays, and primitives. So it doesn't support functions. It doesn't support functions. So it supports object, arrays, and primitives. So it doesn't support functions. So thank you. I think Shodlik, thank you for joining. Thank you for really, thank you for showing that earlier, right there. And I think another interesting API that we also have there is yes, most persons don't know that your JSON.stringify accepts not just single value, right? It can also accept two other things. It can accept something we call a function called replacer and another thing called space. Bossy, how are you? Long time. Is it long time? It's not too long though. Have you submitted your did you submit your work? I guess we didn't touch at all. Yeah, have you submitted your work? I look forward to see what you built though. I look forward to see what you built there. So the JSON.stringify accepts value and a replacer. So the replacer is a function that helps you to replace something, right? It can be a normal function or it can be an arrow function. And the space helps us to format it by the number of space that we want it to be. So sometimes you want your JSON formatted object to have 2 spaces, or to have 4 spacing, or to have 8 spacing, right? Depending on whatever you want to do. So this is the example of what I am saying right here. So if we go to our JavaScript, this is the first place to write JavaScript here. We can do person, right, equals to name equals to, I think we can do boss, and we can do this here. And so we can do a JSON dot stringify. And if you do the JSON dot stringify here and you pass it person, so this is going to convert this whole thing to the stringified version. But then we can go ahead and pass what? A replacer. Let's say our replacer is null and we want the spacing to be 4. So you can see that what? The moment we pass the spacing to be 4, right, you see that the space increased. If we pass the spacing to be 8, the spacing increased. I think we pass it to be 10, right, the spacing increased there. So that is the work of what? The spacing there. Like the space allows us to just, determine how much space you want to parse right there. And it is interesting to know what our replacer is, right? What is the signature of the replacer function? What is the signature of the replacer function? So that will lead me to go to MDN, right? Because I like MDN for things like this. So you want to do a JSON.stringify, right? And let's see what MDN is going to bring. So MDN is the best place, right, for any JavaScript engineer. So here we have JSON.stringify. It helps us to convert JavaScript value to a JSON string, or say a JSON, right? And it can take what? Object like this, or it can take numbers. It can take, so this can take an array of numbers, array of string, array of Boolean, and convert everything. And it can also take, I think, symbols, functions are excluded, right? And I think it also work with date as well. So it has what? Value and replacer, or value replacer and space. And so let's see this replacer here. So the replacer is what? A function that alters the behavior of the stringification process, or an array of string or numbers that specify properties of value to be included in the output. So if the replacer is an array, an element in this array, all elements in this array are not. Is the space being imputed as a value? No, the space is not imputed as a value, right, Martin? The space is not imputed as value. The space is what? So if you do JSON, let's just do JSON dot stringify person. And if we log this here, you can see this here. So if you specify null and you specify 4 as a space right there, so you can see that what there is, what this spacing, right? You can see some spacing right there, even though it's not going to show too much here because we are in the Node.js. Coca is running through Node.js, right? It's not going to show too much there. But I think if I do the console.log, there, wrap with console.log, if I wrap with console.log, and if I check, so if you check the logged version there, So you can see that it has added spacing. So this is the 10 spacing there. So that's what one. So if we can, like, if you can count the spacing, if somebody can count spacing, right? If you can count the spacing, so this space is going to be what? 10 right there, and the other space here is going to be 10. That's what the space means there. Do you understand that, Martin? So that is what the space means right there. And yeah, so to understand the replacer, so all elements in this array that are not string or numbers, either primitives or wrappers objects, including symbols, values, are completely ignored, right? If the replacer is anything other than a function or an array or null, not provided, all string keyed properties of the object are included in the what? In the resulting JSON, in the resulting JSON JSON string. So that's another interesting thing that is also worth knowing, right? All right. Okay. All right. So let's see how we can really understand what this replacer does and how we can play with the replacer right there. And also it's worth to know that if some things are not going fine, it gives us a type error, and yeah. So let's just from their own use here, let's just try to use the replacer from their own function here. Let me see their own usage of the replacer. Okay, so this is a replacer here. That is, this replacer here is going to filter out, right? We're just using this replacer to filter as you're doing a JSON or stringify. Say you want to add some extra stuff, right, during the process, right? So you can pass it. So when you do this, right, JSON or stringify, and you pass this replacer function, so you can see that it filtered out all of the strings, right, and it kept all the numbers right there. So let's just write our own version of the replacer, and let's see what can happen there. So let's say the person that we have, we want to do something like JSON. Let's just duplicate this whole console.log so that we can use this here. And we don't need this space for now. And we want this to be a function. So you want this to be a function. Function has access to key, right, of value. And we want it to be something like this. So inside of this place, so you can console.log key colon value, and let's just do this for now. We can console.log that, and we can just return. I think we could just return value, right? You can always return the value at all times. No, this is going deep into what I don't want it to touch. It's touching some other variables that I don't want it to touch. Okay, it's not touching anything too much other than the fact that it has minified some of the JavaScript stuff, because I think Node.js behind the scene is minifying this. So let me just take this out of Node.js and let's take this to the browser. The browser would have been the best place for us to play with something like this. So let's see, do we have person here? We have person, and our person is Bosse, right? And we can pass this here. And so let's do this here. So you notice that, I mean, it is not doing anything. It's just, but we're making sure that we console.log key colon value. And you see that when you try to console.log key colon value, what are we getting? We're getting this. So it sees that it does not understand what key is, it does not understand what name is, right? And so if we do, let's do something like this again. Let's just do this replacer, and we can do value dot value of, I think we can do value of right there. And yeah, I think this should work. Oh, no, this is not gonna work. We're supposed to do something like this. Okay, that also didn't work. We can do, let's do stringify, let's do to string if it's going to work. So string, let's see if this is going to work. None of them is working. Okay, so how do we fix this? How do we fix this? I'm looking for the best way to really explain this. So maybe what I would have just done to understand the spacer is that take an existing, okay, so I think I know what to do. Yeah, got some ideas there. So we can do something like we can do object dot, you can do object dot entries of the whole value, I think of the whole value, and it will tell us, it will give us an array of something. It should give us an array of all the stuff. So you can see that now we have array of, right, we have array of name and bosse, and we also have array of, okay, it's also taking them. That's interesting. So we could, because this now is, this two array here is now, right, the first one here is the key, right, and this is the value here. So we can now you can now manipulate something, just do stuff here with this. So again, but the idea of the replacer is you can just, before the stringification process completes, right, this function is going to hijack, right, it's just going to hijack, there must be something inside of this key. I don't know what is inside of this key though, but there should be something inside of that key. Except if the key is there should be something inside of the key. Yeah, Samuel, good to see you. Yeah, quite a while there. So we could I could do something like, we can just do something like const, maybe const destructure, because it's an array, right? You can destructure something out of these, and you can say key, right, and you can see value right there, and you can console.log or just say value 2. And if you console.log key, console.log, okay, we said key is already existing. So you want to do let's just see key, new key, let's just call it key 2 and value 2, and we can now tell it to return another set of objects. We want it to return another set of object that looks like this. So just say value 2 colon key 2. So if you look at what this is going to do, this looks very strange. But what this is supposed to do is I'm taking something like maybe name colon bosse, and I'm returning bosse colon name. That's something similar to what I'm doing right there. So why? We have syntax error. So I think we ran into some stuff there. Let's just see what we have there. Maybe I can't return object per se here. So let me take it one by one and see what I have first. Let me just return value for now. If I return value 2, what do I have inside value 2? Then let me just console.log key, right, key 2 and value 2. So we are getting why are we getting undefined? I think if you destructure, I think it's supposed to be a double destructure. What does object.entries of a particular thing returns? I think so. So inside of this, the key 1 contains, the key 2 contains something, and I also want to destructure this again to now give me. Okay, so let's just do this. There. Second destructuring would have been const maybe object. So just do key 2, right? Key 2, and this would have been what? This would now be maybe the A comma B. And if I console.log the A and B now, so A is supposed to be name and B is supposed to be boss, if I am doing something that is correct. I'm doing something that is correct. Yeah, so A is, you can see that A is what? A is now what? How do I for sure log that to be correct one? So I could just do object login here to. So A is what? Name, and B is boss. So you can now you can now, you can just, you could just rearrange it, just do anything possible with the replacer, right? So you can, I think you can create a new object. I think if we do this, it's supposed to accept this. If you do B colon A, it's supposed to accept this as well, even though Yeah, I know we've entered some trouble with JavaScript. I know it entered into some infinite loop there, but just wanted to be sure at least it will do what I ask it to do. So okay. So you're just able to just play around. But the major thing I need you to understand from the replacer function there is that you can just hijack the whole replace thing, right? As the stringify thing is working, you can take over, right? And do some things. But the major thing is you need to understand what the values, right? What the key is and what the value is, right? You want to understand what's going to be inside the key and what is going to be inside the value. So those are the things you want to understand properly, right? What will be inside the key and what will be inside the value, I think. So once you understand that, then you can tweak it based on your need. So again, the replacer function runs before your final result is returned, right? It runs before your final return. Like now, we can you can separate all the strings, right? You can maybe return only the numbers, or you can return only some properties, or you can just do anything you want to do. You can add some values to, you can add some values, or you can create new objects. Just I mean, but the thing here is you just understand that with your replacer function, like in this case now, they are filtering out what? So they are filtering out all of the what? All of the strings. So they're saying that if the value, right, value here is a string, okay, just return undefined. So here it filters out all the strings. It filters out all the strings. And let me see another use there. So this is a make replacer. Let's see what this does here. So this omit all the properties with name. So in this situation now, right here, we are filtering out empty keys right there. So you can see one of the use of the replacer function there. So this make replacer is a function, right? That what when you call it, it will return another arrow function, right? You can see that it will return an arrow function, and the arrow function has key and value. And if initiality is true, right, it's going to set initial to be false and return the value. But if there is a key that is empty, right, it's going to omit that particular thing and return undefined there. So that is another interesting use. Then we can use an array as a replacer, right? So in this situation, right, we are only what? In this object, we're only keeping our key, we're only keeping our week, and we're only keeping our months, right? And we are discarding the rest. So that is the work of the replacer, right? So it can be a function or it can be an array. But the idea is that it also hijacks the JSON.stringify process and allows you to, to just tweak it. So you can either return a value or you return undefined right there. And if you don't return, I think, value, right, it runs into an infinite loop, like I ran into there when I was trying to. So yeah, so I think in this case now, in this case here, we can say we can replace this wouldn't work. We can what can we do there? If value is a string, I think, or let's just return. If you return, let me see if we return. If you return, key. So let's say if we had an empty, let's say if we had an empty string here as well. So you can say maybe empty here, right? So if we want to filter that empty out now, so we can just do if key is equals to what? If key is equals to empty string, right? You want to do return undefined, else just return value. So I think this is gonna work, right? And if you check the result of this, it's supposed to log our whole thing there. Let's just do this. Let's just do this. And I want to comment out these ones for now. And it's not reaching this value. It's not reaching this line though. It's not reaching this line. Is key working in Node.js? I doubt that. Let me take this to. I think I'm observing some weird behavior inside of Node.js there. Let's see. So maybe we should just take the whole replacer thing, right? So this is the whole replacer thing here, and we can call this function replacer right there, and we can do a JSON dot stringify this here. So what if we have person comma replacer okay, it's going on the find. Why is it going on the find there? But I thought it was just the exact same thing that they wrote here that I did. Return undefined or return value. Huh? Interesting. It's not working here. Why? Let's debug. Let's debug this. I'm interested. In this trouble. And we can do return say v if you have key comma v. Right? console.log key. So if k is, why wasn't it working? That's interesting. If k is equals to what? If k is equals to empty string, return, just do undefined, right? Or you give it what? Return value in that situation. So this is not going to work because, okay. So if we have person, let's say, I think I know why. This replacer is very interesting. So if we do maybe name colon person colon boss now, and we do maybe a or just to empty string colon maybe a day here. That's interesting. So if you do a day here, Okay, that's another interesting stuff. It's still not working. If initial is true, return value. That's very, 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 very interesting. But I wrote it earlier. So for the first time, I think for the first time, the K is an empty string. For the first time, the K is an empty string, and it's the second time that the K is name. For the first time when it runs, okay, so for the first time, it's an empty string. So you need to skip that first process, then before you go through this one there. So I think that's the major problem there, but I don't know why. For the first time, the key is empty, and it's the second time that the key is equals to what the key there. So how do you skip? How do you skip that first value? How do you skip the first value? I mean, that's something I don't know. So I guess that's the reason why. So this is for the initial rendering here. This is for the initial thing. So they're saying that for the initial one, just return value, right? But if after the initial one, so they're using this check set initial to make that thing work. Or else it's not gonna work. So this first one, by the time it is the first empty one, still return back value. Now set initial to be false. So if initial is false here, by the time it's coming back the second time, it doesn't enter this line anymore because initial is false, right? It just goes into this place and it sees the empty object and it goes right there. I mean, I've not had a reason to use this replacer as well, but this is interesting that I'm digging deep into it now. That the replacer for the first running, the replacer returns empty string because this line here is empty. So it replaces an empty string for the first line, and it's the second thing that contains your object. So you need to find a way to skip for the first time, right? You need to find a way to skip for the first time so that you can get to the second thing there. Which is something very, very interesting there. So if we are to write that kind of function, I think we can write that. So I think I can just do like if just like a function like what they did as well. Maybe make replacer as well. Let's just to make replacer, make replacer, and it's a function. It set an internal state, right? We set our own internal state, which is initial. Let's just do internal state. That is, so you want to do maybe let initial equals to true. And we then want to return an arrow function, like they said there, an arrow function that has the parameters of key and value, right? The keys and value. And in the first running, right, if initial, right, if initial is true, right, you want to what? you want to set initial to what? Initial to false, right? And when you set initial to false, you then want to return value, right? I think the return value there. And we can now go to if key is empty, like they said. If key is equals to empty, then you can now return undefined, because here you want it to skip something. Now return undefined. And if it has real value, then you can now return the object there. I think it's something like this that they did there, if I'm correct. Yeah, return value and return. So here, this is the omit stuff here. So I think there is an internal object inside, because I think I'm just getting to, so this internal object is what controls this now. So I'm just getting to know that there is inside an object is an object. I mean, that's interesting. That's some very weird stuff going on there. So if we have this, so we can call our make replace, and if you call the make replace, it will always return an arrow function that looks like this. And we can do a JSON dot stringify. We can do a JSON dot stringify, and instead of passing it our own function there, we can now pass it a make replacer, replace. I think so. And it filters out that empty thing there. So for the first initial, so you would always need to have something like this before you can. That's very, very interesting. So again, I can see that maybe if key is equals to, name, right? You want the property to be returned to be maybe changed. Just say, I think we should be able to return, just say maybe a colon b. Let me see if this is going to work, because I want to hijack that whole process there. Let's see if this is going to work. So you see what happened here, right? So I said, like, if the key is equals to name, right, just return a colon b. So it still did, like, it returned in the place of boss now. It hijacked it and replaced like another new object entirely. So, and that's why they call it a replacer, right? Before you go ahead and return the stringified version of your JSON, you can hijack it and do any manipulation that you want to do there. So, but I think this is the key thing that I was missing earlier. Right there. It's just this internal detail, right? Internal way of skipping something in the replacer. I think it's the way the replacer was written internally, so you have to skip stuff there. And you can also use the replacer as an array. I think we can use the replacer as an array. So if we want to fix this now, we could just write, you could just bring in the, I think you can bring in the make replacer there, or we can try the array part. So inside of person, inside of this here, let's see. So you have JSON the stringify of the person, right? We only want name, right? And you can put string name there. So you can see that it's only name that is returned. If you want only age, right, you can put only age there, and it only returns age. So it's either we put like a function, right, or you put an array with the key that you want there. And So that is that with JSON.stringify and JSON.parse, right? So just the internal way of, stringifying something, or internal way of passing something with your JSON or stringify. But it's also worth knowing that the stringify takes not just one single value, right? It can take a particular object, a function, or array, right? A function or array in this case, and a space, right? That determines what goes on behind the scene there. Olawale Shegun, good to see you there. Right. So that is that about that. And the last one is something we call dot to JSON. So the um, dot to JSON, so here they are passing array here, right? And it's only picking title and participant. So it is keeping place. So here they are passing title, participant, and these other ones here. And here we are passing if key is occupied by, right? You want to replace undefined. So here we are skipping occupied by, right? It will skip occupied by and go there. And the space is for formatting stuff. And then we can also do, so in a particular object, I think we can do our own custom to JSON, right? So when you do your own custom to JSON, right, just like we did custom to string and to value, right, you can do a custom to JSON. So anytime you stringify this object with stringify.to.json, this is the method. So this is the method that will be called, right? This is the method that will be called here, right? Anytime you call, so the moment somebody can specify this to JSON method, the moment somebody can specify it to JSON method. So let's just play with that as we wrap up for today. So if we go to this place here, so we have Stanley. Why? We have Stanley. Stanley is supposed to be, I think, person. We call it person. So we have person, which is Stanley, and we can, I think we can add, we can say to JSON. Yeah, just do person dot to JSON, and we can say just return, return maybe a new thing. Just return a new thing. Just do a:1, comma. And so if we now call, so if we come down here and drag this down, so anytime you do a JSON of that thing here, you see that what it's not returning the content of person anymore. It is just returning this object, because Stanley now has what, an internal to JSON. That is, the internal to JSON is what now. So anytime you call this JSON or stringify on person, right, it will be calling its own internal function, which is what will be called here. So again, all these methods are ways to hijack the operation before the final result comes out. So that is a little bit of, like, all the beautiful stuff I wanted to talk about today. So I've covered this first part here, which is what, JSON methods. Under the JSON method, we have JSON.stringify and we have the JSON.parse, right? I think, let me look at JSON.parse. I want to be sure of something about the JSON.parse. JSON.parse. JSON.parse, or better still, there is this new one that is coming. There is this new API that is coming, that is JSON.to-raw JSON, right? It's still experimental. And I don't know what it does basically, but I think it's to avoid, it is create a raw JSON object containing a piece of JSON text. When serialized to JSON, the raw JSON object is treated as it is already a piece of JSON. So this text is required to be valid JSON. Oh, that's interesting. So this is a new API, JSON.rawJSON, and a way to check that if something is a raw JSON, that is JSON.isRawJSON. So this is new. I don't know when it's going to arrive in the browser, but let's see the browser support as well. I think we have it in Chrome, but we don't have it in Firefox already. We don't have it in Safari. So that's another interesting addition to your knowledge there. And then pass. I wanted to check JSON.pass. You want to check JSON.pass, huh? So JSON.pass. So again, so JSON.pass accepts its text and it accepts a reviver, another function, right? It accepts another function which is similar to your replacer. It accepts another function that is similar to your what? To your replacer as well there. So which helps us to also, the function here also helps us to transform this value, right, before it gets out. So we are transforming it there. If the value is type of object, just return undefined and log this value there. That's interesting. So if this is a big JSON and you try to pass it, you can say value key, value, and context. So we do if key equals to this here, right? Ignore the value, okay, and use big int to context.source. So there's something called context.source here, right there. So these are cool stuff that even me I don't know about until today, right? That you can pass in 3 values to that function, which is key, value, and context. And context.source is the original value right there. So yeah, right. It's good to see you, Miriam. Right, good to see you guys there. Let's see you guys joining here. So basically that's all for today, right? We've gone deeper, deeper into JSON, right? The JSON class in itself, it contains JSON.isRawJSON, JSON.pass, JSON.rawJSON, and JSON.stringify, right? And they allow us to just transform the objects internally before the result is being. So JSON.pass converts the stringified JSON into a real JavaScript array or JavaScript value object, and the JSON.stringify converts a JSON converts something that was stringified into a string. So the JSON.stringify converts a real object into a string version, a JSON string version, while JSON.pass takes something that is already stringified and take it into a raw value right there. And we have this new value that these new methods, right, is raw JSON and raw JSON, right there. That is still experimental there. And I also talked today about object to primitive conversion as well, right? It uses something called symbol.has to primitive behind the scene, and it also has the ability to use the dot to what it has the to string, right, to string or value of, right, the to string and to value of can hijack the operation of when you are converting a object to a primitive value, right? And that way. So subsequent stream next Friday, I think that should be 9 o'clock WAT, thereabout. 9 o'clock WAT, right? 9 o'clock WAT, or which is around 3 p.m. EST, thereabout. All right. Yeah, I'm going to talk about dates and time. And I also think I'm also going to talk a little bit about date FNS. I'm also going to talk a little bit about moment, and I'm also going to talk about temporal. So you don't want to miss it, right? I'm going to be dropping temporal, the new time and date API that is coming to JavaScript. I'm going to just be diving deep into how they work and all the beautiful things that they are bringing into JavaScript. So you just don't want to miss it. Please tell somebody to tell another somebody and bring somebody to come and learn about date and time in JavaScript, the limitations and the new power of temporal that is coming soon. I think before the end of the year, we should also have temporal in all the browsers. When I say all the browsers, all the major browsers, right? I feel like Chrome, Firefox, and Safari should have temporal before the end of the year. So we should not have too much need for date FNS or moments so much more again. Yeah. And tomorrow I am going to be speaking at next scale. I don't know, is the name correct? Yeah, I think it should be next scale. We're going to be speaking at Netscale Town Hall, right? And I'm going to be speaking about future proofing your career, right? The skills, the mindset that you need to, to level up. And you can check Twitter. You can check my Twitter. You see the Google Meet URL. I think it should be tomorrow around 6 p.m. WAT time. There, I'm going to be speaking. Definitely, I'm going to be talking about AI, talking about some other soft skills and some other stuff that you can use to, to level up, right? To become an asset that your generation can reckon with. And I'm also going to talk about like, all these modern things that you need to be aware of, also open source conversation, right? Open source can also help you to really level up in a very good, great way. And so check my Twitter, you see the link there to join. Check my Twitter or check LinkedIn or my Instagram, right? You'll see the link to join the town hall if you're interested, right? There. And after that, I think around 9 p.m., I'm going to be streaming Next.js, right? If you joined the call earlier, I talked about React 19, the stuff that are coming to React version 19, right? So if you want to be able to use all those cool stuff ahead, Next.js gives us the ability to use all those cool stuff already. So if you want to see me do Next.js and React, right, you can't afford to miss it. Just join the call tomorrow and we will just talk about Next.js tomorrow. So thank you for joining. Thank you for the faithfuls, right? Those that have been faithful with me, following up, checking up on the stream. Thank you so much for joining, and see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.